Hey everyone, and welcome back to another work in progress drawing. This time for what is turning out to be a vampire, Nosferatu. Um, Originally, it was just going to be some kind of weird, dark, grotesque, demonic zombie type creature. I really didn't know what I was doing with it, but as time goes, it's been changing. So I think at this point I'm about halfway done with it, and those videos will be up as soon as I'm finished. But as you can see, I did not include the entire blue line, red line sketch phase in this. I just went straight to it because, quite frankly, these videos are getting a little long in my recording, which is why I have to speed up at some point. I think I am showing the layers and just kind of what I'm doing here. But if you want to see how I sketch things out from nothing to a sketch, go check out my first video. I'm going to be going back to that drawing eventually again soon anyway. There's just other projects I want to get done. You can see how I blue line stuff, I use red line, I go to a finalized sketch, and then do the line art over it, and I keep the line art layer. So right here, as soon as I have a sketch already done, I just use the selection tool and start to kind of cut around it. So that way I can separate out my subject from my background. Everyone has a different process they go through. There's been times where I'll just use one layer to paint a grayscale, almost like a pencil drawing on the whole thing, and then all my color layers are on different layers. Any artifacting, or artifacts I should say, are on a different layer. Stuff like, if I'm doing something with fire, I'll put cinders on another layer, and flame, extra flames, or like extra, like kind of like strobe lights or something, whatever it is. But yeah, anyway, that's just kind of my process here. So there's my line art. Even this, the line art, I put the opacity down to like 30%, and I'm gonna go grab my my trusty burn tool and just start drawing as if I was doing this with pencil. It's literally the same thing. But yeah, this creature is eventually going to turn into some weird, dark, grotesque, demonic looking Nosferatu. Also, because the movie's coming out soon, the remake, I saw the trailers for it, and it looks really promising. I like the original silent film. I think it was silent. Yeah, the original Nosferatu. It's been so long since I saw it, and the remake looks awesome. I'm a huge fan of vampires, like most people into horror. And the remake has me really excited. It's done by the same guy, Robert Eggers, that did, oh God, The Northman, which I thought was really good. One of my favorite movies the year it came out. And The Witch was also a really, really good slow burn horror movie. And he did one called The Lighthouse, which is a really good, creepy descent into madness. I think that movie was filmed in like 4:3. It purposely wasn't letterboxed, so it has this kind of old school feeling of when movies kind of were able to fit their aspect ratio on like a regular TV back from the 60s through the 80s until widescreens started coming out in the 90s, I think it was. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to talk about vampires for a little bit since, I mean, you can see me drawing right here. It's just, yeah, the burn tool. I use burn and dodge to do everything in black and white. I color on top of black and white. That's just kind of how I do things. Oh, and these teeth, by the way, they don't stay. You will also see in this work in progress. I don't know how many videos this particular painting, drawing, whatever you want to call it, is going to be, but I've already made a couple changes, so it doesn't actually it doesn't look like this right now. Like, I know I add an ear later that I didn't have because I thought, hey, it's just going to be some kind of zombie, but no, it's a vampire. But yeah, oh, I think, yeah, also in this one you'll see how I cover over and redo the teeth because these teeth suck. This does not scream Nosferatu. He's got little, I want to say, baby vampire fangs, almost about as threatening as the not vampires from Twilight. Jesus Christ! If there was a movie or book series that I wish I could unsee. I never read them, obviously. I don't read that kind of stuff, but I did have an ex take me to see a Twilight movie, and I still never got an apology for that. I'm just kidding. If you're watching, it is what it is. Twilight sucks. It's a terrible movie. But actually, my introduction to vampires was The Lost Boys, and that was a movie that came out in the 80s about kid and his brother that when his mom, they moved to Santa Cruz, I think it was. I'm not gonna go check it right now. It was something, it's supposed to be something like Santa Cruz, and there's a gang of vampires that lives out in a cave over in Santa Cruz, and a whole bunch of stuff happens. Hey, they're go ahead and eat the noodles, Michael. They're just noodles. Yeah, great movie. I'll still quote it to this day. There's a character in it that introduces herself just Star. It's pretty funny. No need for that, but that kind of introduction was just, this is 80s cheese. I love it. It's great. So after that, I kind of said, vampires are pretty cool. I was a kid, really, really young. I don't remember when it came out, but I saw it years after it came out, if that tells you anything. And yeah, I started getting into vampires because of Lost Boys. And I read, what was the first book I read? I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. That's right. That was my, I want to say, literary introduction to vampires. And when I heard there was a movie coming out years later, I was excited. And then I saw the cast. And then I saw the trailer. And then I lost all hope. Yeah, in the book, Robert Neville, it takes place, I think, in the 60s or 70s when the book was written. He got bit by something while he was in the Panama Canal, was immune to the virus, there was a worldwide outbreak, blah, blah, blah. But, long story short, in the book, the vampires have a language, a society. They can speak, and they're very clearly vampires. It has one of the coolest chase scenes. I remember he's checking his watch as he's raiding houses during the day, but his watch battery stops. He didn't realize it. The sun's going down. So he's driving away from this suburb to get back to his, and they start chasing him, jumping on his car, and he makes it to his garage. This vampire follows him in, and he starts pulling all these religious trinkets out, and nothing's working. Crosses aren't working. He's got a Star of David. He's got a couple other, I don't remember all of them, but he's got like a Hindu cross or something. Again, I could be completely off. It's been a while since I read it. But point is, none of these religious symbols are working. Then he realizes, oh, this is an old neighbor of mine. Used to be an atheist. These don't scare him. And they show a sign of intelligence. By the end of the book, the woman that he meets throughout the book, turns out she's a vampire, but she can walk out in the sun during the day. They've evolved. And she's trying to get him to, leave, go away, save yourself. And once he finds out that she's a vampire, it all goes south. He gets captured. He's taken to their fortress. He can see them kind of working as a functional society. And he's like, oh my God, I'm the last human alive. And she gives him a cyanide pill because in the morning they're going to publicly execute them. So instead of going through that, he decides to look at the pill. He says the title of the book, I Am Legend, and kills himself. Unalives himself. I know the algorithm, you can't say that kind of stuff, which is pretty stupid. No. The movie completely misses the point. The vampires are turned into these bad CG zombie cancer victims. Will Smith completely does not embody the character of Robert from the novel. The mental breaks are a little bit more controlled in the book. It's a little bit too cheesy and on the nose in the movie. The movie was just terrible. It is nothing at all like the book. And I'm not expecting like a one-to-one recreation, but I mean, it at least, put some effort into it. So, no. Other movies, I think some of my favorite vampire movies would have to be, was it Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula? Love that movie. Great cinematography. Like, it just looks beautiful even to this day. Interview with the Vampire. Love that movie. Same with, there's these two other kind of movies that came out in the 80s I saw right after Lost Boys was Fright Night, which the remake was actually pretty good for Fright Night. I did like the remake. It was fun. It was what remakes were supposed to be. Here we go. I'm redrawing the teeth. You can see I'm going to make them more Nosferatu-ish, more menacing. Since speaking of more menacing, I did mention Interview with the Vampire and Dracula, and as much as I do like those movies, and I did mention Fright Night, there's another one called Near Dark. I am not a fan of romantic vampires. They're just like Interview with the Vampire pulled it off. The books, the Vampire Chronicles. Same with Near Dark and Dracula. There's also another one, movie called Martin, made by George Romero of Night of the Living Dead fame. Except it was kind of weird. It was about a human who thought he was a vampire, so he was like taking blood from people using a syringe. Anyway, if you want to check out a weird vampire, not vampire movie, is a movie called Martin by George Romero. But yeah, I like my vampires to be monstrous, to be dangerous, almost feral looking. My favorite modern vampire movie has to be 30 Days of Night, based on the graphic novel of the same name. And funny enough, I got to meet Steve Niles at a Comic-Con before the movie was even announced, and it was, there's this a movie is coming out based on my graphic novel. So I bought the graphic novel and read it, and like, wow, this 30 Days a Night takes place in a town called Barrow, Alaska, where it's night for 30 days or a month, and it's the perfect feeding ground. Like, how's nobody's ever taken that idea before this? Like, it took this long for somebody to realize or come up with, hey, it's a cold environment, it's perfect, they're not going to overheat, there's no sun for 30 days, if we're going by that classic vampire lore, and craft this incredibly gory, monstrous story. And the vampires, I'm going to add blood to this later, because there's parts in paintings where I leave unfinished because I don't know what I want to do, and it's cheap, I just cover stuff with gore and maybe bugs. Oh yeah, I'm drawing some bugs here. Anyway, I don't think I'm going to do the bugs though, since it is going to be a vampire, but that's why I put a question mark. But yeah, 30 Days of Night, probably it's one really overlooked, since people saw it just as a typical, maybe Hollywood action monster movie. But if you get a chance to check it out, if you haven't, it is severely underrated and probably the most terrifying and coolest vampire movie I've ever seen. And not to say it's scary. I don't get scared by things. I'm a horror dude, but I do admit, this could be terrifying. What I mean by that is terrifying for normal people, people that don't, work in morgues or have never worked, with dead bodies before, which I have, still do. Anyway, check that out. Aside from that, too, I also do a lot of artwork for like indie comic book companies, game companies, record labels. And speaking of video games, a lot of the influences I had as a kid coming into this was the Vampire the Masquerade was one of them. Not just the game, like the board game, but the video game too. I guess you can say both. I was a huge fan of the White Wolf kind of stuff. And when a little segue, going to White Wolf, I remember when Underworld came out. Underworld is also one of my favorite vampire movies. I love the lore. Well, the first three anyway. The last few, kind of hot garbage. They really missed the ball on there. But I'd say my biggest influence for a lot of my creature designs came from an old game series, which I hear is coming back as a remake or at least a remaster, Legacy of Kain. Most notably the Soul Reaver games. It'd be nice if they did Blood Omen 1 and 2. I loved Blood Omen 1 and 2, but Soul Reaver, because it was so unconventional. They took what was traditional vampire lore and made it kind of fantasy and supernatural. It wasn't your typical, gothic European vampires in, England running around biting people. This was in a whole nother world and who knows what time period. And yeah, if you ever get a chance to check out the Legacy of Kain games, go ahead. Looks like I'm running out of time here. I will continue this in the next video. Had more to say than I thought. Anyway, see you guys next time.